All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Baddies and Tech TryHackMe Night. We are going to review Pentesting Fundamentals today. I just want to let everyone know that I am recording. However, I'm only recording my voice and the screen. I can't even say words. I'm only recording my voice and the screen. I'm not recording anyone else's voice. And I will ask questions, but please do not feel pressured to answer. It's totally fine. It's not weird or anything. I don't want anyone to feel like they have to answer questions. I can answer them myself, or, it's not it might sound like it's a one-sided conversation, but it's totally fine. Do not feel pressured to chime in or anything like that. And again, I am recording, but it's only the screen and my voice. It's no one else's voice. So you don't have to worry about that. And the VOD will be uploaded. So if you have to leave or anything like that, it's totally fine. We'll have the VOD and you can rewatch it as many times as you like. So previously, we were doing the Introduction to Cybersecurity room, or PATH. And in that path, we went through Introduction to Cybersecurity, Introduction to Offensive, and Introduction to Defensive Security. And in those paths, we reviewed the intros with careers. We did Intro to Offensive with web app, operation security, and network security. And in Intro to Defensive, we did digital forensics and security operations. So now we're on pen testing fundamentals, and all of this is in the junior penetration testing or tester. I think the word is junior penetration tester learning path. So this is where we are in the learning path. And we'll eventually get down to all of these, but right now, this is where we are. We did this, and now we're here. So, penetration testing, that's probably really popular right now. Everyone wants to be an ethical hacker. As a reminder, of course, hacking is illegal. So, penetration testing. What is penetration testing? Does anyone know what it is? Or what they think it is, or anything like that? So TryHackMe here says, before teaching you technical hands-on aspects of ethical hacking, you'll need to understand more about what a penetration tester's job responsibilities are and what processes are followed in performing pen tests, finding vulnerabilities in a client's application or system. The importance and relevance of cybersecurity are ever increasing and can be in every walk of life. News headlines fill our screens, reporting yet another hack or data leak. It's almost every day we see, in the media that there's some kind of hack happening, and then we'll hear about the hack. Then we won't hear about anything else. And then we'll hear about it again, maybe when the company does their after action report, or they release to the government or the feds, like what happened, how the hackers got in, stuff like that. Cybersecurity is relevant to all people in the modern world, including a strong password policy to protect your emails, or to businesses and other organizations needing to protect both devices and data from damages. A penetration test, or pen test, is an ethically driven attempt to test and analyze the security defenses to protect these assets and pieces of information. A penetration test involves using the same tools, techniques, and methodologies that someone with a malicious intent would use, and is similar to an audit. According to Security Magazine, a cybersecurity industry magazine, there are over 2,200 cybersecurity attacks every day, one attack every 39 seconds. So let's see what these folks are saying. That's real tiny. We're going to have to. Okay, one article left. Fantastic. I'll go ahead and post the link for you all to review this article. Looks like they talk about hacking just different devices. I'm guessing common passwords, stuff like that. So I'll post that afterwards for everyone to review. All right, so penetration testing ethics. So this is the most important part, I believe, and this is something that I always say anytime we're reviewing something, especially on the offensive security side, is that hacking is illegal, right? So we have to make sure that we're not just going in and hacking systems because you want to learn. Like, that's not how it works, right? So the battle of legality and ethics in cybersecurity, let alone penetration testing, is always controversial. Labels like hacking and hacker often hold negative connotations, especially in pop culture, thanks to a few bad apples. The idea of legally gaining access to a computer system is a challenging concept to grasp. After all, what makes it legal exactly? It's a very good question, because, when you sign up or you get, a new computer or something, or even like a new Xbox or whatever, they say you can't like attack the box. If that even makes any sense, you can't like attack the operating system or what was it called back then? Jailbreaking. Recall that penetration test is an authorized audit of a computer system's security and defenses as agreed by the owners of the systems. The legality of penetration tests is pretty clear cut in this sense. Anything that falls outside of this agreement is deemed as unauthorized. Before a penetration test starts, a formal discussion occurs between the penetration tester and the system owner. Various tools, techniques, and systems to be tested are agreed on. The discussion forms the scope of the penetration test agreement and will determine the course the penetration test takes. So that's super important, because the scope for your penetration test is how you know what you're actually testing. So you don't just go out and start, a company wants you to do a penetration test and you start attacking production web servers, right? At a company I previously worked at, we would prepare the environment. The environment would be set up. It's somewhere between dev and prod, but before it was released to prod, we would hire a penetration tester to test the environment, and then we would release it to prod based on their findings. So if they found that the SQL Server had some kind of vulnerability that we hadn't patched, then we would patch it, they would test it again, and then we would release it to prod. And that's kind of how, in environments that I've worked in, that took this seriously, because most of the environments I've worked in have dealt with lots and lots and lots of money and data. Companies that provide penetration testing service are held against legal frameworks and industry accreditation. For example, the National Cybersecurity Center, NCSC, has a check accreditation scheme in the UK. This means that only check-approved companies can conduct authorized penetration tests of public sector and CNI systems and networks. Ethics is the moral debate between right and wrong. Where an action may be legal, it may go against an individual's belief system of right and wrong. Penetration testers will often be faced with potentially morally questionable actions during the pen test. For example, they are gaining access to a database and will be presented with potentially sensitive information, or they are perhaps performing a phishing attack on an employee to test the organization's human security. If that action has been agreed upon during the initial stages, it is legal, however, ethically questionable. Hackers are sorted into 3 categories where their ethics and motivations behind their actions determine what hack category they are placed in. Let's discover these 3 in the table below. So, regarding these hack categories, in some places you're going to find that they've kind of changed the name of this white hat, gray hat, black hat thing. Some places they call it authorized, unauthorized, and semi-authorized. I want to say that's the correct terminology that some places are using. And it's more of, I guess, we're moving more towards an inclusive way of describing these things. Because as you know, black hat has a negative connotation and white hat has a positive connotation. And there's no real reason for why those words are used in that way. So let's see. We have here white hat, which would be our authorized user or authorized penetration tester, right? These hackers are considered the good people. They remain within the law and use their skills to benefit others. An example, a penetration tester performing an authorized engagement on a company. Gray hat. These are the people that use their skills to benefit others often. However, they do not respect or follow the law or ethical standards at all times. For example, someone taking down a scamming site. And this is a really, really good example because the scam baiting YouTube channels have gotten really, really popular. They have increased like tenfold. However, it's important to remember that falls between authorized and unauthorized. Like you're still hacking into their systems, and that is morally questionable, right? So whereas the legality is already set in stone, what you may feel as though you're doing something great, even though it's a gray area. It's like, it's hard to apply morals to something where people feel. And black hat, you're unauthorized hackers. These people are criminals. They often seek to damage organizations or gain some form of financial benefit at the cost of others. For example, ransomware authors infect devices with malicious code and hold data for ransom. So you can see that the jump from gray hat, the taking down scam baiting websites, to ransomware, black hat, that is a massive jump, right? Oh, wait, I'm not sharing my screen. Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh. I thought I was sharing my screen. I'm so sorry. I'm just sitting here talking. I did not realize. Uh-huh. Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry, y'all. I didn't even realize it. No. Thank you though. Well, if if it happens again, let me know. I had no idea, honestly. Okay, so this is where we were. We're right here in this hat category. And so like I was saying, you can see that the jump from gray hat here to black hat, it seems like a massive jump, right? Like because you have your black hat. Black hat hackers are criminals. That's the definition, right? They're out for money. They're out for whatever, they're ransomware gangs. They're the ones doing the stuff that would have cause harm to people. And then you have gray hat, and it's kind of like, well, they're saving someone from being scammed, but also they're helping someone, but they're also causing harm to someone else. But this is where morals and ethics come into play. So, rules of engagement, ROE. The ROE is a document that is created at the initial stages of a penetration testing engagement. This document consists of 3 main sections explained in the table below, which are ultimately responsible for deciding how the engagement is carried out. The SANS Institute has a great example of this document, which you can view here online. They use Ignite. That's a file sharing thing. Okay, so this is interesting. You see the context, target, debriefing frequencies. Okay, does the target organization have automatic shunning capabilities that might disrupt the access in unforeseen ways, create a denial of service condition, and if so? So it's basically like questions you have to ask or you want them to fill out. I'll post that one afterwards too. So we have our sections and description. Permission. This section of the document gives explicit permission for the engagement to be carried out. This permission is essential to legally protect individuals and organizations for the activities they carry out. Test scope. This section of the document will annotate specific targets to which the engagement should apply. For example, the penetration test may only apply to certain servers or applications, but not the entire network. And rules. The rules section will define exactly the techniques that are permitted during the engagement. For example, the rules may specifically state that techniques such as phishing attacks are prohibited, but man-in-the-middle attacks are okay. And that makes a lot of sense, right? Because when we're in these sandbox labs, we might just, pull up Metasploit or pull up Dirbuster and just go at the website, right? And go or Nmap and then, search exploit entire network. But like in real life, you can't just go, in your pen testing engagement, you can't just attack the entire network or like every web server in whatever method that you can, because a phishing attempt, maybe it might not work, or you might have a place where they're testing something where all the employees don't really have access to email. They might just have logins with no email address, right? So we have some questions here. You are given permission to perform a security audit on an organization. What type of hacker would you be? You are given permission. These hackers are considered good people. They remain within the law and use their skill for the benefit. Penetration tests are performing an authorized engagement of the company. So that's going to be our white hat hacker. They are authorized. White hat, authorized. You attack an organization and steal their data. What type of hacker would you be? These people are criminals. They often seek to damage organizations or gain some form of financial benefit at the cost of others. Ransomware. Ransomware gangs, ransomware actors. That would be a black hat hacker. What document defines how a penetration testing engagement should be carried out? That is going to be our rules of engagement. That's this document here that we got from SANS, Rules of Engagement Worksheet. All right, perfect. Now we're on to penetration testing methodologies. So, penetration tests can have a wide variety of subjects and targets within scope. Because of this, no penetration test is the same, and there are no one case fits all as to how a penetration tester should approach it. The steps a penetration tester takes during an engagement is known as the methodology. A practical methodology is a smart one where the steps taken are relevant to the situation at hand. For example, having a methodology that you would use to test the security of a web application is not practical when you have to test the security of a network. Before discussing some different industry standard methodologies, we should take note that all of them have a general theme of following stages. So here we have some stages. This is nice. So we have information gathering. This stage involves collecting as much publicly accessible information about a target or organization as possible. For example, OSINT and research. We discussed OSINT, that's open source intelligence. That's really any information that you can find out on the clear web. So people, using a video to talk about the type of work they do or verifying their work email address and you contacting them through that, right? Or somewhere, some kind of leaked forum. Enumeration and scanning. This stage involves discovering applications and services running on the system. For example, finding a web server that may be potentially vulnerable. So they have a scanner like Shodan, for example. Although Shodan's doing its own thing, you could use Nmap or whatever other scanner you're probably allowed to use in your engagement. But like Shodan would tell you, hey, this server is exposed to the internet running this service. And Nmap is kind of no different. Exploitation. This stage involves leveraging vulnerabilities discovered on a system or application. This stage can involve the use of public exploits or exploiting application logic. So this is your exploits that may not have been patched. The server may not, or the system may not have had the patch to fix it, or, a buffer overflow or something like that. Writing too many characters and it just, yeah. Privilege escalation. Once you have successfully exploited a system or application known as a foothold, this stage is the attempt to expand your access to a system. You can escalate horizontally and vertically, where horizontally is accessing another account with the same permissions, with the same permission group, i.e. another user, whereas vertically is that of another permission group, like an administrator. And post-exploitation. This stage involves a few substages. What other hosts can be targeted, pivoting? What additional information can we gather from the host now that we are a privileged user? Covering your tracks and reporting. And these stages here, once you're in, exploitation, privilege escalation, and post-exploitation are really important steps. I would say for me personally, the hardest part is somewhere around up in here. It's probably privilege escalation, because I feel like at this point you have to think less like a hacker and more like a system admin or a system engineer. If you've done the kind of work, you understand like, oh, I have this account to do this, and how can I can't use this account here, and stuff like that. So we have the Open Source Security Testing Methodology Manual. This is a manual that provides a detailed framework of testing strategies for systems, software, applications, communications, and the human aspect of cybersecurity. This methodology focuses primarily on how these systems, applications communicate. So it includes a methodology for telecommunications, phones, VoIP, etc., wired networks, and wireless communications. The advantages is that it covers various testing strategies in depth. The disadvantage is that the framework is left The framework is difficult to understand, very detailed, and tends to use unique definitions. Another advantage is it includes testing strategies for specific targets like telecommunications and networking. The framework is flexible depending upon the organization's needs, and the framework is meant to set a standard for system and applications, meaning that a universal methodology can be used in a penetration testing scenario. So this is open source methodology. I'll post this one as well. So we have OWASP, Open Web Application Security Project framework, is a community-driven and frequently updated framework used solely to test the security of web applications and services. The foundation regularly writes reports stating the top 10 vulnerabilities a web application may have, the testing approach, and remediation. And we've probably all heard of OWASP top 10. Like, people just throw that around a lot. And so this is it. It's an open source, community driven framework. Some of the advantage of OWASP top 10 is it's easy to pick up and understand. It's actively maintained and is frequently updated. It covers all stages of an engagement from testing to reporting and remediation, and it specializes in web applications and services. Some of the disadvantages of OWASP: it may not be clear what type of vulnerability a web application has. They can often overlap. OWASP does not make suggestions to any specific software development life cycles. The framework doesn't hold any accreditation such as check. And then we have NIST, which we may have also heard of NIST as well. The NIST cybersecurity framework is a popular framework used to improve an organization's cybersecurity standards and manage the risk of cyber threats. This framework is a bit of an honorable mention because of its popularity and detail. And NIST stands for National Institute of Standards and Technology Center of Excellence. The framework provides guidelines on security controls and benchmarks for success for organizations from critical infrastructure like power plants all through to commercial. There is a limited section on standard guidelines for the methodology a penetration tester should take. Some of the advantages of NIST is that the framework is estimated to be used by 50% of American organizations by 2020. The framework is extremely detailed in setting standards to help organizations mitigate the threat posed by cyber actors. The framework is very frequently updated. NIST provides accreditation for organizations that use this framework, and the NIST framework is designed to be implemented alongside other frameworks. So NIST plays friendly. Some of the disadvantages is NIST has many iterations of frameworks, so it may be difficult to decide which one applies to your organization. The NIST framework has weak auditing policies, making it difficult to determine how a breach occurred. The framework does not consider cloud computing, which is becoming increasingly popular for organizations. That is a big negative. Lots of companies are using the cloud. Or maybe they've already updated and we just don't know here. So NCSC CAF, which is National Cybersecurity Center Cyber Assessment Framework, is an extensive framework of 14 principles used to assess the risk of various cyber threats and organization defenses against these. The framework applies to organizations considered to perform vitally important services and activities, such as critical infrastructure, banking, and the likes. The framework mainly focuses on and assesses the following: data security, system security, identity access control, resiliency monitoring, and response and recovery planning. So some of the advantages of this framework is backed by a government cybersecurity agency. The framework provides accreditation. This framework covers 14 principles, which range from security to response. The disadvantage is this framework is still new, meaning that organizations haven't had much time to make the necessary changes to it to be suitable for it. The framework is based on principles and ideas and isn't as direct as having rules like some other frameworks. So we have quite a few frameworks here for many different things, and they all kind of do somewhat the same stuff and somewhat different. What stage of penetration test involves using publicly available information? That question almost seems random considering we just went through all of these frameworks, but it's still a framework in its way. Let's see. This stage involves collecting as much publicly accessible information about the target or organization using OSINT. So that is going to be our information gathering. If you wanted to use a framework for pen testing telecommunications, what framework would you use? Note, we're looking for the acronym here, not the full name. That's this one right here, because the Open Source Security Testing Methodology Manual, it says it primarily focuses on, and it has a methodology for telecommunications, phones, and VoIP. That one's a mouthful. What framework focuses on the testing of web applications? That is definitely going to be the one we're probably most familiar with, OWASP. It's a community-driven and frequently updated framework used solely to test the security of web application and services. OWASP, Open Web Application Security Project. All right. So now we're on to our box testing here, and then we have our practical example. So again, with the box, black box, white box, gray box penetration testing. And the idea of this makes sense if you know, if you can apply this ideology to even really any type of test. A black box test, you have no knowledge. Gray box, partial knowledge, like you might know a SQL server exists. And white box, you completely know everything that exists. You know how the SQL server connects to the web server. There are three primary scopes when testing an application or service. Your understanding of your target will determine the level of testing that you perform in your penetration tests, testing engagement. In this task, we will cover these three different scopes of testing. Black box. Black box texting. Black box testing. This testing provides a high-level process where the tester is not given any information about the inner workings of the application or the service. The tester acts as a regular user testing the functionality and interaction of the application or piece of software. This testing can involve interacting with the interface, i.e. buttons, and testing to see whether the intended result is returned. No knowledge of programming or understanding of the program is necessary for this type of testing. Black box testing significantly increases the amount of time spent during the information gathering and enumeration phase to understand the attack surface of the target. Gray box testing, and that makes a lot of sense if you think about it. It's a black box. You don't know what's in the box. You can't see in the box. You have no idea what's going on with the box. You just know the box exists and you have to figure out what is in the box. And if you apply that to your pen testing engagement, makes a lot of sense there. Gray box testing. This testing process is the most popular for things such as penetration tests. It is a combination of both black box and white box testing processes. The tester will have some limited knowledge of the internal components of the application or piece of software. Still, it will be interacting with the applications as if it were a black box scenario, then using their knowledge of the application to try and resolve issues as they find them. With gray box testing, the limited knowledge given saves time and is often chosen for extremely well-hardened attack surfaces. And so with the gray box, if you still think of it as the box scenario, you can think like you're standing a couple of feet away and the box is gray, so you can kind of see inside of it, and you can definitely make out that there's, I don't know, a pencil, but everything else you're kind of like, I can't really see what the other things are. It's gray. The other things are gray, and I'm not sure, but I know for a fact that there's a pencil here. And if you apply that to the technology, it's still, the logic is still a little sound. White box testing. This testing process is a low-level process usually done by a software developer who knows programming and application logic. The tester will be testing the internal components of the application or piece of software. For example, ensuring that specific functions work correctly and within a reasonable amount of time. The tester will have full knowledge of the application and its expected behavior, and is much more time consuming than black box testing. The full knowledge of in a white box testing scenario provides a testing approach that guarantees an entire attack surface can be validated. And if you think solely just back to, can I see inside the box? With white box testing, you can think of the box as just not having any type of curtain or anything. You can just see straight through the box. And you can see that there's a pencil, there's an iPad, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff in the box. And so you know exactly what's there. It's just that now you have to think about how to make it work, or make sure that it's working how it's intended. So we have some questions here. You are asked to test an application but are not given access to its source code. What testing process is this? You're not giving access to the source code. That's going to most likely be black box. I wonder if oops. My mouse is so far away from me right now, and I'm not sure why. Let's try black box. And my keyboard is also like on the other side of my desk. Black box? Okay, so it is black box. And that makes a lot of sense. You have no access to anything. It's like, there's a window and the curtains are completely covering it. You can't see inside. And so you don't know what's in there. You're asked to test the website and are given access to the current source code. What testing process is this? That would be white box testing, because that would be a window with no fixings on it. You can see straight inside the apartment or the house, and you know everything. You're given the source code, and that makes a lot of sense if you think about it in that term. So we have our first penetration test. Acme has approached you for an assignment. They want you to carry out the stages of a penetration test on their infrastructure. View the site by clicking the green button and following the guided instructions to complete this exercise. All right. Can I move this? I feel like every time we do these, I struggle with this little thing down here. Okay, we're gonna leave it like that. Okay, our rules of engagement. Let's go through the stages of a penetration test assignment for the Acme company. This stage of the penetration test is where you define 3 primary objectives. Cycle through the tabs to explore these. So permission. Okay, so for a penetration test to be legal and ethical, both parties will sign the document giving clear permission for the intended actions. We have test scope. The test scope will define what the targets or environment are being tested against. And our rules, the rules define the type of behavior our penetration tester will employ. So, okay, Fred's pen test engagement. We have permission to perform the penetration tests, and we've put you on this one. The client has sent a statement of work and scoping document, which is attached to this email. Please use this to begin the engagement. Okay, cool. So we're on information gathering, and that was, where was that? Methodology. So we're right here. We're in the first part. Ooh. The information gathering state of an engagement is often undervalued. This stage involves publicly accessible channels to collect your intel. Abby, who is a public, hold on, I'm clicking on something. Not sure what I'm clicking on. Okay. Abby has a public profile on LinkedIn, advertises that she works for Acme, and even includes her email in her bio, which is a possible way that we can target her work laptop and thus the company. See, right here. I think this, did I mention that earlier about the LinkedIn thing? You can just have your work email on LinkedIn and people can have access to it. Okay, so maybe I should have thought about her work email. Okay, I don't think we're going to need it just yet. Enumeration. This is our next stage right here. The goal of this stage is to get a complete picture of your target. A penetration tester will identify user accounts, machines, and on their network shares, applications, etc. Information gathered from stage 2 and the engagement scope document will help in enumerating your target. The enumeration phase is very important as your findings are used to exploit the target system. Let's pretend Abby from stage 2 made a LinkedIn post sharing a blog post she wrote about Acme. From this post, you find Acme's web server's IP address, so try scanning it. Do they want us to type in the word, or do we just put in the IP address here? We have attacker, switch, and target. Scan target. Oh, okay. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. The attacker scans the IP address, and then the target then responds back. So we did a vulnerability scan. It is a web server. It says login, no. Exploitation. Oh, okay. Wow. The exploitation stage, that's this stage right here, involves the knowledge from your enumeration to identify and exploit vulnerabilities in any of their applications that are in scope. For example, we enumerated Acme's website in stage 3 and found it was vulnerable. We would now exploit this vulnerability, thus ethically hacking Acme's website. The target machine is being attacked using a tool called Metasploit, something you'll learn about on TryHackMe. And now we have post-exploitation. So we're here. Post-exploitation stages starts when you've gained unauthorized access to a system. At this stage of the engagement, your main goal will be to maintain access to the computer system and escalate your privileges. Oh, so we're here. We're more like in these phase. Systems are usually set up with normal users that don't have access to various sensitive files and functions. Gaining access to higher privileged users, such as administrators, will allow you to perform actions that you wouldn't be able to as a normal user, such as reading sensitive files and gaining access to programs. After doing this, you'll be extracting sensitive information from the system and attacking other components in the environment. If the system is part of a network, you will attempt to gain access to other machines on the network. So you have lower privilege user and escalating on up to administrator. Pen test reporting and clearing up. This stage usually occurs at the end of a penetration test. As a penetration tester, you will have to explain your results of your engagement to the client. This is usually done in the form of a report that contains details regarding any security issues you found and how to mitigate them. The client will use this report to understand the security issues and fix the flaws in the technology stack that was tested. It is also best practice to clean up the environment you've been testing where possible. For example, if you were provided access to machines or tooling by the client, you need to delete any artifacts that have been created as a result of this testing. And so it says use TryHackMe. Okay, that makes sense. We didn't actually do any pen testing. We just kind of learned about it. Okay, so that is, let's see. Thank you for sending over your report. I still can't believe you managed to find several vulnerabilities in our application. I can also confirm we've removed the high privileged user accounts that you managed to create. Thanks again. All right. So that's going to be the end of our pen testing fundamentals room. Does anyone have any questions about what we just talked about here in the room? Questions, comments? Anything about pen testing fundamentals? I will post the information. I'll upload the VOD and I will post the information in the cybersecurity channel after this is done, once it gets uploaded and stuff like that. And thank you all for showing up. That's going to be pretty much it for tonight. And I'll post the links to these different frameworks and the Ignite rules of engagement that we had here. All right. Thanks, y'all. Have a great night. I'll see you all next week.